Okay, get this. What if I told you we're learning to hack life itself? That's the incredible promise of biotechnology. It's a field that's giving us the power to read, write, and yeah, even rewrite the fundamental code that makes us, well, us.
I know. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? Programming a plant to fight its own battles against pests. But this isn't some far off fantasy. It's really happening. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how it works.
So let's back up a second. What is biotechnology really? Well, at its most basic, it's just using living things, or, parts of them, to make stuff that's useful for people. But honestly, the coolest way to think about it is like this. If DNA is the programming language of life, then biotechnology, well, it gives us the keyboard.
All right, so you've got this incredible new power. Where do you even start? Let's begin with something we all need, food. We're going to see how biotech is kicking off a whole new agricultural revolution. Ever since we started farming, it's been a non-stop fight. You've got pests trying to eat our crops, and then you've got what scientists call abiotic stresses, which is just a fancy way of saying things like freezing cold, crazy droughts, or killer heat waves. And believe me, every single year, these things are a huge threat to our global food supply.
So the big question is, how do we help our crops fight back? If they can't evolve fast enough on their own, can we step in and give them a boost with these new biotech tools? And the answer is absolutely yes.
And this is where it gets really cool. By tweaking that genetic code, scientists can literally build the solutions right into the plant. We're talking about crops that can handle the heat or the cold way better, plants that have their own built-in bug repellent, food that doesn't spoil as fast. We can even ramp up the nutrition, like with the famous golden rice, which is packed with vitamin A to help fight malnutrition. It's a total game changer.
Okay, that's the theory. But let's look at a real-world example to see how this all plays out. And there's no better case study than one of the biggest success stories out there, Brit Kitten.
The way this works is just brilliant. Scientists found a gene in a super common bacterium. You'll hear it called Bt. This gene makes a protein that's totally harmless to us, but for certain insects, it's lights out. So they took that gene and popped it right into the cotton plant's DNA. Now, the cotton makes its own insecticide. A pest, like a bollworm, comes along, takes a bite, and the protein activates in its guts. And well, it's game over for the pest. The plant literally defends itself.
But what if you don't want to add a new gene? What if you want to turn one off? That's where this other super precise technique comes in. It's called RNA interference, or RNAi for short. It's not like writing new code. It's more like hitting a mute button on a specific gene. For example, scientists have made tobacco plants that can fight off tiny parasitic worms. When a worm attacks, the plant triggers the RNAi, which silences the worm's own survival genes. How cool is that? The plant uses the pest's own biology against it.
Okay, so we've been out in the fields. Now let's head over to the doctor's office. Because these same ideas, editing the code of life, aren't just about our food. They are completely revolutionizing medicine. Just look at insulin. For decades, if you had diabetes, your insulin came from slaughtered cattle and pigs. Seriously, the supply was limited, it wasn't a perfect match, and some people had allergic reactions. Then biotech stepped in. Scientists took the human gene for insulin and put it into simple bacteria like E. coli. They basically turned these little microbes into tiny insulin-making factories. And just like that, we had a massive, safe supply of insulin that is identical to what our own bodies make. It's a huge deal.
But think about this. What if we could do more than just manage a disease? What if we could fix the root cause? That is the incredible dream of gene therapy. The idea itself sounds almost simple, right? If a disease is caused by one broken gene, why not just replace it with a working one? And this isn't just a what-if scenario. The very first gene therapy was actually used to treat a little girl with a devastating genetic disorder called ADS deficiency. It's caused by a single faulty gene, but the result is catastrophic. It basically wipes out your immune system. You're left defenseless against everything. So here's what they did, and it was truly groundbreaking. They took some of the patient's own immune cells, her lymphocytes, out of her blood. Then, in the lab, they used a modified harmless virus to act like a tiny delivery truck, carrying the correct functional gene right into those cells. They grew more of these fixed cells and then put them back into her body. And it worked. Now there was a catch.
These cells aren't immortal. They don't last forever. So she needed to get these infusions periodically to keep the treatment working.
Okay, so we've talked about plants and we've talked about human cells. What's the next logical step? Well, it's modifying the DNA of whole animals. This is where things get really interesting, and we start talking about transgenic animals.
So what is a transgenic animal? It's pretty straightforward, really. It's just an animal that has had its DNA tweaked to carry and use an extra foreign gene. And scientists have done this with all sorts of animals: mice, pigs, sheep, you name it. But of course, the big question is, why would you do that? Well, there are a few really important reasons, and pretty much all of them are about improving human health. For one, they help us understand how genes actually work. We can also create animal models for human diseases. Think of mice that are programmed to get something like Alzheimer's. This lets researchers test new drugs and treatments. And they can even be used to produce life-saving medicines or to test the safety of new vaccines before they ever get near a person. And check this out. This is Rosie. In 1997, she became the world's first transgenic cow. She was engineered to do something amazing: produce milk that contained a human protein. And the result was a milk that was way more nutritious and balanced for human babies. A potential game changer for infant health, all thanks to one special cow. Okay, but with any technology this powerful, you know there are going to be some big, tough questions. It's one thing to have the ability to rewrite life's code. It's a whole other thing to figure out how we should use that power, or even if we should. And that brings us to one of the thorniest debates in biology today. If a corporation creates a new kind of plant or patents a human gene, do they own it? I mean, what does it even mean to own a piece of life? This whole issue has led to a really charged term: biopiracy. It's what people call it when big companies, usually from developed nations, go into developing countries and take their natural resources or even their traditional knowledge without permission and without paying for it. It creates this huge imbalance, right? The countries with all the rich biodiversity end up getting nothing for it. And this is not just some academic debate. This is real. We've seen huge international legal battles over things that have been used for centuries. We're talking about specific types of basmati rice, the medicinal uses of the neem tree, even turmeric. Suddenly, things that were common knowledge are getting patented. So naturally, countries are starting to push back. India, for example, set up a special group called the Genetic Engineering Approval Committee, or GEAC. Their whole job is to look at this research, decide if it's valid, and make sure it's safe and ethical before it gets out there. It's basically a way of protecting their own natural and intellectual resources. So that's where we stand. We've built these tools that are just unbelievably powerful. We can make crops that fight their own pests. We can turn microbes into tiny medicine factories. We can even fix genetic diseases. The science is moving so fast, it's hard to keep up. But the biggest question facing us now isn't, can we do this? The question is, should we? And that's a conversation that all of us, scientists, ethicists, everyone, needs to have as we figure out how to write the next chapter in the book of life.